Under the vast Texas sky where golden wheat fields stretched endlessly toward the horizon, an old rancher named William stood perfectly still, his weathered hands gripping the fence post as if it were the only solid thing left in his world. The woman before him was not what he expected when he posted that advertisement for ranch help 3 weeks ago. Her name was Sarah, and she was doing a full split between the fence rails. Her face twisted, not in pain, but in desperate concentration as she worked, to stretch muscles that had grown tight over years of sitting behind desks and living the life everyone told her she should want. William had seen many things in his 68 years on this land, but never had someone shown up to his remote cattle ranch and immediately begun what she called her flexibility training, right there in the middle of his property. Deeper, Sarah said through gritted teeth, her voice carrying across the empty fields. Please, I can't take it anymore. William froze. His late wife Margaret had been gone 5 years now, and in all that time he had grown accustomed to silence, to the simple rhythms of feeding cattle, mending fences, watching sunsets alone with only his horse Dusty for company. But something in Sarah's voice reached past his careful isolation, past the walls he had built around his heart after Margaret's passing. Without understanding why, he found himself walking toward her, his boots crunching on the dry earth. What exactly are you trying to do here? He asked, his voice rough from disuse. Sarah looked up at him, her blonde hair falling across her face, and for the first time, William noticed the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that came not from physical work, but from years of carrying something too heavy for one person to bear. I'm trying to remember who I used to be, she said simply. William understood that better than she could know. He knelt down beside her, his old knees protesting, and without asking permission, he placed one hand gently on her back, right between her shoulder blades. Breathe first, he said, using the same voice he once used with frightened colts. You can't force your way back to yourself, you have to ease into it. Sarah drew in a shaky breath, and William felt the tension in her body begin to shift. That's it, he said quietly. Now let me help you stretch a little deeper, but we go slow, real slow. He applied the gentlest pressure to her back, helping her lean forward just another inch, and Sarah let out a sound that was half relief, half sob. I was a dancer, she whispered. 25 years ago, before I became what my parents wanted, before I married who they approved of, before I spent 2 decades in a law office defending corporations, I didn't believe. And William kept his hand steady on her back, a quiet presence. My daughter, Sarah continued. She's getting married next month, and when she asked me what I loved, what I was passionate about, I realized I couldn't answer her. I couldn't tell my own daughter a single true thing about who I am. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. William thought about Margaret, about how she used to dance in their kitchen when she thought no one was watching, about how he wished he had told her more often that she was beautiful, that she made his world make sense. Why did you come here? He asked. Sarah laughed, a sound without much humor in it. The advertisement said you needed someone who wasn't afraid of hard work, someone willing to learn, someone looking for a fresh start. She paused. I've been afraid my whole life, William, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of being too much or not enough, afraid of taking up space. She gestured at her split position, at the vulnerability of it. This, she said, stretching like this, being this exposed, it terrifies me. But it's also the first honest thing I've done in years. William was quiet for a long moment, watching the windmill turn slowly. In the distance, my Margaret, he finally said. She used to tell me that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about doing the thing that scares you anyway, about showing up as yourself, even when the world wants you to be smaller. He helped Sarah ease out of the stretch, his movements careful and respectful. You're hired, he said, but not as ranch help, as a partner. I need someone to help me run this place, and you need somewhere to remember how to be yourself again. Sarah stared at him, tears streaming down her face. I don't know anything about ranching, and I don't know anything about fancy law degrees, William replied, but I know about starting over. I know about finding your way back to the person you were meant to be. Over the following weeks, Sarah learned the rhythms of ranch life. She woke before dawn to help William feed the cattle, her muscles protesting at first, but gradually growing stronger. Every morning before the work began, she would stretch by that same fence, and every morning William would be there to help her go a little deeper to ease her back into flexibility she thought she had lost forever. "Tell me about Margaret," Sarah said one morning as William helped her work through a particularly difficult stretch. William was silent for so long Sarah thought he might not answer. "She was a teacher," he finally said. "Second grade she had this way of seeing the best in people, especially the troubled kids, the ones everyone else had given up on." He paused, his hand steady on Sarah's shoulder as she leaned into the stretch when she got sick. He continued, his voice rough. "She made me promise I wouldn't shut down, that I wouldn't let grief turn me into someone who was just going through the motions. Have you kept that promise?" Sarah asked gently. William laughed, but there was pain in it. "Until you showed up doing splits in my fence, I'd say I was failing pretty spectacularly." They worked together through the hot Texas summer. Sarah learned to ride, though she was terrified at first, climbing onto Dusty with shaking hands while William walked beside her, speaking in that calm, steady voice until her fear began to ease. William learned to talk again, to share stories about Margaret, about his childhood on this ranch, about dreams he had set aside when life demanded practicality. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching storm clouds gather on the horizon, Sarah said something that had been weighing on her. "My ex-husband called yesterday," she said. "He wants me to come back, says this is just a midlife crisis, that I'm embarrassing myself." William took a sip of his coffee. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that for the first time in 25 years I can touch my toes." Sarah laughed. "That probably wasn't what he wanted to hear." "Probably not," William agreed. "But it sounds like the truth." The storm broke overhead, rain pounding on the tin roof, but they stayed where they were, comfortable in the silence between them. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted. "My daughter's wedding is in 2 weeks and everyone will be there. Everyone who knew me as the successful lawyer, the perfect wife, they won't understand this." She gestured at herself, at her sun-bronzed skin, her calloused hands, her body that was growing lean and strong from hard work. "They'll think I've lost my mind." William set down his coffee cup. "Margaret used to say that the people who really love you don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be real." He turned to look at Sarah, his eyes kind. "Your daughter asked you what you loved, what you were passionate about, and now you have an answer." Sarah wiped at her eyes. "I love this," she said quietly. "I love waking up before dawn and knowing that what I do matters. I love feeling my body get stronger. I love learning about things I never thought I could understand. I love—" She paused. "I love feeling like myself again." "Then that's what you tell her," William said simply. The day Sarah left for her daughter's wedding, William helped her pack. She had bought a new dress, nothing like the expensive designer clothes she used to wear, but something simple and flowing that moved with her body. "Thank you," she said as she stood by her truck, "for taking a chance on someone who showed up and immediately started doing splits in your fence." William smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his weathered face. "Thank you for reminding me that it's never too late to start over." Sarah returned 3 days later, driving down the long dirt road faster than was probably safe. William was working on the fence, the same fence where they had first met, when he heard her truck. She got out and ran toward him, and for a moment William felt his heart catch. But Sarah stopped, a few feet away, her face radiant. She understood. Sarah said breathlessly, "My daughter. She said she had been worried about me for years, that I seemed like I was sleepwalking through my life." Sarah laughed, the sound pure and joyful, and then she asked if I would teach her to ride a horse this summer. She wants to come visit to see this place that brought her mother back to life. William felt something shift in his chest, something that had been frozen for 5 years beginning to thaw. "I'd like that," he said. That evening, as they sat on the porch, Sarah said something that had been building for weeks. "William, I need to tell you something." He waited, patient as always. "When I came here, I was broken. I needed someone to help me stretch to, help me reach depths I couldn't get to on my own." She paused. "You did that for me." You helped me find my way back to myself. But, she continued, somewhere along the way, this became about more than just finding myself. William's heart was beating, harder than it had in years. Sarah met his eyes. I'm falling in love with you, she said simply. I know it's complicated. I know we're both older and set in our ways. I know Margaret will always be a part of your heart, and I wouldn't want it any other way. She took a breath, but I needed you to know that what I feel for you is real. William was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he reached out and took Sarah's hand. Margaret used to tell me that the he